What is up, guys? This is Alex from First Figures.
Hi there everyone, this is Chuggles.
Who do we have here? Crash Bandicoot's life-size Akumas! Hey! Whew! That's quite a name. It's quite a long one right there.
Very long one this time.
You know what, guys? So happy to finally be able to show the life-size Aku mask. We've been working on him actually not too long. It's been quite a whirlwind from announcing the Crash Bandicoot license back in April. That we've been working with Activision on this. The first one we did was obviously the Spyro was from the Activision line, and then followed up with the Crash PVC, and then here we are with our first life-size prop, and that is the Aku mask. I mean, I couldn't think of anything better to start it off with than the Aku mask. So here we are. We've been working on it, for a good 6 months, I would say. And it's been a pretty smooth process. That's because we had quite a lot of sort of influence from the time that we worked on the Majora's Mask from The Legend of Zelda. So that really sort of helped a little bit about how we developed and designed the Aku mask. So, definitely, if this is the first time that you watch any of these making of documentaries, what we do is we sort of go in and we talk a little bit about why we made the design choices, some of the processes behind what we did, and hopefully you learn a bit more about why we did all the sort of design choices that we made.
That's right, yes. So, if you are interested in it, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, we're always in the Collectors Club, the First for Figures official Collectors Club, asking members in there of any particular questions and topics we go through in these kind of documentaries. So
we did one, you asked for some questions on the Aku mask.
Yep, that's right. And that was quite a while back, but recently we had a recent con show, New York Comic Con, and we brought in quite a lot of new members that were interested in this Aku mask. So we went through that documentary post and asked members questions with regards to this product.
Sort of the things that you might be interested in.
Yeah.
And I believe we have quite a few questions.
We have quite a lot of questions actually, yes.
Alright, so why don't we get stuck into it and see some of the questions, and then that can give you some direction on why we did those choices.
Right, shall we give this a spin first?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Right, let's give it a... it's absolutely huge, guys. If you're a fan of Crash Bandicoot, this is a really great centerpiece for that. People will walk into the room, boom, huge Aku mask. And it's, the great thing about it is that we saw that at the New York Comic Con. People would sit there and go, tiki mask, right? They would look at it, it's like a tiki style mask, and then they would go, oh yeah, it's Aku, and then it's Crash Bandicoot, and that sort of, the joy on their face when they saw it, was fantastic. So that was really, really cool to see.
You can see this from a distance as well, across the room. Because the size of it, it instantly picked up the colours, and it's like straight away, coming straight out of the box.
There you go, absolutely. Cool.
All right, let's get straight to the questions.
All right, sweet.
All right, first question from a Wayne Gruniger. Why did you choose Aku as the first character for the resin Crash line? Also, what made you chose the model of the game you based your sculpture and colours on?
Okay, interesting question. So, this is the first resin product that we've made from the Crash Bandicoot line. But to be clear, this is the prop line, which is very different to the Crash resin line. Those are going to be more character-based, so Crash Bandicoot himself, Neo Cortex, etc., etc. Those are a separate line. Whereas this is its own standalone line, which is the Aku mask, and we hope in the future, if this proves popular and people want it, to have a Uka mask, which will go great side by side. So this is the prop replica line from the Crash Bandicoot series, just to be clear on that. Now, interestingly, we've actually been working on a Crash Bandicoot as well. Now, we've been working on that Crash Bandicoot this is the resin version, for almost at the same time, and it's almost finished as well. But we decided to go with the life-size Aku mask because we have recently, back in the summer, as you know, the Insane Trilogy came out for Crash Bandicoot, and with that timing, we also released a Crash PVC, and I have one right here.
Bring that up.
Here you go. So this is it. If you guys haven't seen that, this is from the pause there.
Pause there.
Yeah, this is from the Insane trilogy. You guys, if you haven't played it, you got to try it out. It's an amazing game. The Crash Bandicoot here, we released it for pre-order in June, and it was sort of in retailer hands, in people's hands. I'd say around about October, November, approximately like that, people started receiving their product. So, in terms of announcing that we had the Activision license for Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot, well, actually, this is actually, technically the second product. And yes, it's the first in the resin line, but it's not the first Crash Bandicoot product. So having already released this Crash Bandicoot into the marketplace, we believe that that's already sort of made a connection with a lot of people already who may therefore know about us making these sort of bigger first of figures resin statues as well. And likewise, in the leaflet, we talk about, we talked about the Crash Bandicoot resin. But the Aku Aku mask is something that we actually asked people. We asked people in the club, would they rather see the Aku Aku mask or would they rather see the Crash Bandicoot first? Bearing in mind this was just released.
Yeah.
So, the reality is we've got a lot of plans for Crash Bandicoot and we're going to have a great time making it all. So all things will be coming, eventually, and we want to just really concentrate on the Aku Aku mask because we already just did the PVC version.
Right. For the guys that are watching that are concerned, why are we doing another Crash so soon? Well, this is based on the Insane trilogy, whilst the current resin Crash that we're working on is based on the classic.
Right.
Crash.
I mean, there's that distinction as well, of course. But it also made sense just to go with something that wasn't just Crash, even though it was the classic version and it's a different scale and a different size, etc., etc. Don't get me wrong, that Crash is looking amazing as well. But this Aku Aku mask, it's its own line, it's part of the series. I really look forward to discussing about why we went with these and all these sort of different design choices for that. But definitely it made sense, especially when we asked the club on Facebook, the Collectors Club, what did they think as well, and they were very happy to go with either or. More people were leaning towards Aku Aku.
People that bought the Crash, the PVC Crash, would say, "Oh, wow, I would like something a little bit different."
Exactly.
And I'll come back to Crash a little bit later on.
Exactly. So we can expect a Crash Bandicoot, probably early Q1 next year, for example.
2018.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in terms of, this is the reason why we went with the Aku Aku mask, it's because this Crash has always just been released. And if you've got one of these, maybe you have it already in your collection, maybe you've seen them in the shops, you now have a better idea of the scale of this life-size Aku Aku mask, because we are talking.
Doing that again.
Well, it was funny because in New York Comic Con, a lot of people were like, because Crash was put on that counter, and people were like, "Can we come behind the counter?" Which is where we're kind of like our chill out zone. Like, we really got to come around behind it, take a photo with my face behind the mask, and we were like, "Sure, of course." Just don't knock anything over. But so it definitely caught a lot of people's eyes, and people definitely wanted to take the photos with the life-size Aku Aku mask. So that's the reason why. And the second question was, which model did we base the game on? Well, we talked about classic Crash. The resin that we've got coming up, Chocks, as it is a classic base, so the Naughty Dog era. And because of that, we went for the style of Crash 1, the Aku Aku mask. So it's not from any of the other versions of Crash. It's the Naughty Dog era. We're going with the OG.
I mean, if you guys are enjoying the remastered version game and you want a updated version of Aku Aku mask, then do let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
it's something that we're always looking to doing. So if there's an interest for it, so it could
we could always have another version of this as well.
Or even PVC. I mean, just let us know in the comments or in the Collectors Club.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Next question from Licio Bucci. Did you ever consider to make the statue in wood instead of resin?
That's a great question. I'm always talking about different materials. And the great thing about resin, Chocks, is you can make it seem like the faux of everything. So faux bronze, faux metal, faux wood, any of that kind of... resin is very versatile in that respect. You can make it by either the shape of it or the painting of it in a certain way to make it look like what it's trying to replicate.
Yeah.
So in terms of did we ever consider using wood, the answer is a resounding no, and I'll tell you the reason why. The reason is that's a whole new ballgame when it comes to export and import, because then it involves a lot of things like, has it been defumigated? Are there bugs inside the wood? It's a whole kettle of fish, whole new sort of things where customers were like, let's open this up, let's check, let's crack it open, all that sort of stuff. So wood definitely has a different sort of sense of regulations associated with it when it comes to the importation into many different countries. Because as you know, Chocks, we have many different warehouses. So we have warehouses in the US, Canada, in the UK, and in Slovakia,
and in
China. So every single place has their own regulations, and therefore, let's just stick with what we know. This bad boy looks like wood. He isn't wood. He's gonna get through customs, no problem. Bada bing, bada boom, done.
Right, next question from Jonathan Dixon. For a game as cartoony as Crash Bandicoot, how difficult is it to strike that balance between style and realism?
That's the guys are coming up with some great questions, and that is a really good one because, this is another clear example, and we've had this question before, Chocks, where you take something from a really, really, really old era. We're talking about the PS1 classic.
Right.
The classic era back then, back in the late 90s, and you try and take that and bring it into the new world. How do you do that? Well, what looks like very, very polygony kind of low resolution textures, well, you gotta sort of fill in the gaps, and you've got to take into account that the mask is wooden, at least in some, the renders that you see. And with that information in mind, you think it kind of makes sense, even though it's not on the actual 3D model, because of course it couldn't handle back then. Add the wood grain, add that realism to it. And of course we could just have made it completely smooth, just like the textures in the game. But that didn't really make too much sense. Especially, we've been quite lucky with the Crash Bandicoot series, because a lot of, game makers have made more and more Crash games since the Naughty Dog era.
Yeah.
So despite us concentrating on the Naughty Dog era, as it got, throughout the different series of Crash, you could sort of see how the Crash, the Aku Aku mask evolved over time. And of course, the greatest, was the Insane trilogy.
Yeah.
The fact that it's taking what we were originally going to go with, which is the Crash 1 series, and completely bring it into the the modern era with the high quality textures, etc., etc. You can clearly see it was wood, and of course, therefore, it made sense to go. It made sense to go to town with the details with regards to adding that realism to that. So, you know what? The textures on it are realistic, but the colors, Chocks, are so colorful and so in your face that it just looks cartoony. So you have that beautiful blend between cartoon and realism. Now look, behind us we have a mirror, and I can see the silhouette of the Crash, of the Aku Aku mask in that, and it looks amazingly colourful and cartoony. What you can't see on it are the textures, and of course if you come anywhere relatively close to it, it's chock full of textures, Chocks. Do you want to go through some of the textures that you see?
Yeah, before I start back up, so you can definitely see the feathers there. Yeah.
Do you see how it's got like a ridge going down the middle?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's almost like what do you call it, the stalk?
Yeah,
I guess you would call it. And
so it's not like flat. You can definitely feel the grooves.
That's right.
Like I said, the stalk bit is sticking out.
Yeah.
And then obviously, if you look from the side, that's not flat as well. It's like free. You can see the brows. And you can see the carvings underneath the nose as well, around the lips.
Tons and tons of different styles of the wood
teeth,
textures.
You can see like the dirt between the grooves, even the goatee as well.
Yeah, it's almost like a leaf kind of style, isn't it?
Yeah. And then definitely, you can't see from here, but there's like gaps between this crate, because this is supposed to be a broken crate, and with the swirly wind.
Yeah, that's right.
Going round. And then apart from that, the base as well, you can see it feels like one of those, what do you call them? Egyptian style? Yeah, engravings.
Sort of Aztec, Egyptian,
that's
that
right,
kind of style. Absolutely.
And you can still, around the back as well, you can still see the patterns on the side of the crate.
Yeah, you know, for sure. In terms of textures, you got it all. You've got, as you said, the wooden textures nicely going with the kind of sort of stone effect of the base, and of course the organicness of the feathers. But of course they're not completely realistic. It has a cartoony effect to it as well. So it has these sort of hard edges and those sort of outlines that are going around like that. And of course you have, as you said, the colourful textures of the lips, the teeth, the nose, the eyes, even the underneath of the eyes. What were they saying? It's like a cantaloupe.
Right. That's right.
Also known as, what's the honeydew melon?
Melon. That comes to mind first. Yes.
You know, absolutely. So, in terms of the actual textures on it, there are definitely lots of textures, and in terms of getting that balance between the cartoon and the texture, we really believe that we got it just about right. Some areas.
It's very vibrant. I mean, like, from looking the face on, it just looks a bit flat, but when you actually start seeing it going around, you see them popping up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can see where the way the light's picking up there, you can really see it there. Yeah. No, that's great. That's how it's come out.
Just get this moving again.
Yeah. Cool.
Alright. Next question. Again, from Alicia Bucci. Usually I'll ask, how did you choose a pose? But a mask doesn't really have a pose, so how did you choose the base?
So that's a really great question. You briefly talked about it as well as what's happening here. So why don't we talk about the history of what actually we went through with the design choice. Actually what had happened was we'd come up with a bunch of different designs and concepts for the Aqua mask, and
shall we start off saying how it works in the game?
No. Let's go with the concept first.
All right,
okay.
cool.
Right, so a lot of people. So what we did is we had our concept artists work on some choices of different kinds of bases that we were thinking of for the Aqua mask, and then we asked the club. And the club is amazing to come back to give us wash over a lot of information for us and a lot of feedback and opinions on that. And of course, you know, we really respect that and appreciate it. Sometimes the club gets it completely wrong. And what had happened was, you know, and we should show the imagery. Yeah. There was a bunch of different choices, and we had asked them to go with eight different choices. Yeah. And the one that was the most popular was basically how, of course, as you know, the Aqua mask is in the air.
Yeah.
How do you?
It's floating all the time.
Exactly.
Following Crash.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you get that floating effect? Well, the choice that won was basically, I think, was one of the weaker ones, and that was the Wumpa Fruits. Now, the Wumpa Fruit was the way that basically the Wumpa Fruit was the base, and it kind of piled up, and it was sort of stuck on top of a triangle of Wumpa Fruit. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know, this is what the club has come back with. This is what they've said is the best one, and I just didn't feel it had that. I just felt it was kind of like, let's take anything from the Crash universe. Wumpa Fruit. Let's take, you know, Aqua Master. Done. And I felt it didn't quite work, despite the club, and I love them so much. This time, I didn't think I wasn't happy with that coming out first. And you know, actually, the one that I really liked was the one from, you know, where it's almost like he's got this kind of vortex behind him. It's like almost like to another dimension. But that is
like
from
a black hole kind of
thing. Right. But that is from Crash 3, and it's not from Crash 1. So again, it didn't make too much sense, and I was racking my brains, and I was just thinking, you know what, it just doesn't work. So as you said, Chalks, we stared much more, going back into detail, into research. Chalks, you want to talk a little bit about how we came up with this idea for from the game, etc.
From the game, I mean, straight from the very first level, as you
absolutely
going down the kind of like path, right? Like
the jungle path.
Yeah, with the camera behind the character going down the jungle paths, and when you know, first time you see him is when you smash up a crate, and this is when.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you know, it made sense to have the crate. Now, of course, a crate came to mind straight away. No doubt in my mind, the first thing to think of is a crate. But can we be clear, Chalks? How naff would it be to have a box and it stuck on the top? And it was really the easy way out to have just done that. But you know what? The shape, the aesthetics, the total waste of space of creating a box, the composition is so key when we're making statues, Chocks, that the composition really has to be taken into account. How can you maximize the details for the smallest amount of space? So every space that you use, Chocks, it's got to be justified. And having a box with the Aku Aku mask on the sides of the box, of the crate, with the Aku Aku mask on there, looks ridiculous because it's just a box with this on top of it. You don't actually see him on a box. And the second thing is, well, how would you even go around about putting it on there? Like, how do you make it stay straight? Do we start having, transparent poles holding it up and all that sort of stuff? And I really wanted to avoid transparent poles, and that's the easy way out. Now, having established that there was absolutely no way that we wanted just to have a random, not a random box, but the crate being in its complete physical shape, we thought, well, what happens? Well, you smash. Of course, Thrash goes up and he smashes through these crates. And of course, once you smash through the crate and the Aku Aku mask comes out, well, he spins out, he comes out, all that sort of good stuff. So it made sense that the mask was coming out of a smashed crate. Now, once you figured out that, the concept became much easier to make the base because you no longer, Chocks, had to have that box.
Cool box, yeah.
Didn't need to have a cube anymore. Now you had artistic license to talk about the composition. Once you have the artistic free range to go with the composition, you're off. You can do this, you can talk about that. What's the most amount of space? How do we line up the feathers to the front, to the back? All that sort of good stuff. It's on the table. No longer are you constrained by the cube shape of the crate. No longer with that no longer being an object, no longer being a reason to have it as a crate. Now all of a sudden, as I say, we can now do this. So it made sense to have him smash it through the crate. Now, how do you smash through a crate? The crate, of course, is a box shape originally. Now this would have meant that these four corners would have been straight up if it was the original shape. Now, of course, he smashed through it. So you have this ability to how do you create that motion? Well, you can see it. What do you see, Chocks?
Well, they're kind of sticking out.
Exactly.
At an angle.
Exactly right.
Fan out.
Exactly.
At the same time.
So how else do you get that sense of movement and that motion? Now that we agreed that we're fanning it out, we now know that there's a whirlwind effect going on there.
Yeah.
So how do you also create that effect?
Well, by sticking these planks of wood around it.
Exactly. So the first thing is you have the actual whirlwind effect, and if you can see it as you're going through, and maybe you can sort of see it. It's a great example from the back, right? It's sort of spinning and it's whirlwinding, and this is using as the reason that it's floating in the air. This is the way that we can have it suspended in the air in a kind of makeshift kind of disbelief the way it's up in the air, right? Now, this was a challenge to try and, first of all, we had to start with the actual base shape and having that whirlwind effect. And from there, it made sense to get a box and then chop it up. Now, we didn't need to have the entirety of the box because you can imagine some of it's thrown over there, some of it's thrown over there, some of it is caught inside the whirlwind, inside of the tornado. So you could have this great effect to have all the little pieces coming off and they're getting caught up and trapped within the vortex. Now, what did we talk about, Chucks? We talked about it being what crate? Because there's a bunch of different crates. You can have Wumpa Fruit crates, one-up crates. This one was the
Aku Aku maskers.
So how do we identify this to be the Aku Aku mask one?
Well, there's the markings on the side of the
boom,
box.
there you go. So if you actually see a Aku Aku mask, the way it looks is when it's not broken is on the four sides. There is the face of the Aku Aku mask. Of course, that makes sense. So you can easily identify it when you're running through the level. Boom, you smash it up, and it's going to be an Aku Aku mask inside that crate. So those markings are here. Here. Here, you can sort of see them all over, right? And that's the sort of subtle color differences that you have to have when you have. Yes, it's of course you have a very colorful mask Don't get me wrong. If you focus on the face, you have beautiful lips, noses, different color feathers, eyebrows, etc., all vibrant different colors. But the reality is, the bulk of it, it's a brown color, right? For the mask. Now the crate it comes out of, it's brownish red. So having the little bits of accents of these colors that you can see over here, that you can see, as we talked about, so these sort of accents, these sort of things really help break up the sort of very monotonous color of the of the crate. The crates are not supposed to be colorful; they're supposed to be functional, and that is obviously a kind of red, sort of orangey brown color.
Yeah.
And of course, the orangey brown color starts making it a little bit too similar to the mask itself. And if you look quite carefully, there's a very, very subtle difference between the two. But you can definitely see this is a little bit more orange, and this is a little bit more brown. It's very, very subtle, but there's definitely that.
You can just about pick it up from the camera.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah,
you can still see it.
Yeah, you can definitely see it. Definitely see it. Yeah, going back to Jonathan Dixon's comments, he was asking about the cartoony nature versus the realism. There are actually, it's not just one brown hair chocks. Can you see the browns and the oranges within the actual mask itself? It's not just one tone color brown.
Yeah, you can definitely see it in the back as well.
Yeah, you can probably see it. It's probably more obvious on there. You can see there's a bunch of different colors within there. And of course, then we have the grooves, and they have markings within the groove. And if you actually look on the sort of smooth areas, if you look along here, for example, on the smooth area, there isn't any markings there. The way that we paint it, Chocks, is we use quite hairy brushes, okay? And you use quite thick paint.
Yeah.
What you do is you run it straight along the groove, and that creates very, very, very fine lines. Can you see those very, very fine lines, Chocks? Yeah? That's actually not there on the actual sculpt. It's an effect that you do for making it very, almost like a polished kind of wood, where you have the wood grain hidden inside the paint. So that's one of, if anybody's aspiring paint artists, that's the way you just slightly thick paint with a slightly different color, and you pull it along the length of the sculpt, and it leaves a streak of lines, very similar to wood grain lines. Cool.
All right. Next question from James Bennington. When doing the base, what was the hardest part of balancing out the design with the mask and being so prominent above it?
Yeah, we sort of briefly talked about that on the previous question, and the whole idea of having it as part of that vortex, it was really coming up with the concept. Once we had that concept locked down, the rest of it became pretty straightforward. We had that creative freedom to really do what you wanted to, so it wasn't really too difficult to do that. The overall composition came quite quickly once we had that. It was just going through that whole thing about, Wumpa fruit, really? And then going from that to the final thing was really quite. Once we had that down, I think within 3 or 4 days, the 3D artist and guy who's done an amazing job with this, we knocked it through and we got there in the end. In terms of actually balancing it structurally, that's not too difficult. It's got quite a lot of resin space here, and quite a lot of surface area. What was quite tough, of course, was the fact that this Aku mask is very thin. So in terms of adding stability to it, having the vortex, having quite a big surface area chocks allowed for us to be able to mount it much more safely.
Because we had to consider that this mask here on the back is not 100% flat. It has a slight curve to it.
Right.
And the same goes to the front as well. You can see this curving inwards slightly in the front around the cheek area. So yeah, I don't think
you can see a little bit of curving in here as well.
Yeah.
Just in between his brows as well. So, but yeah, in terms of balancing it on the actual pole, or on the actual wind effect, straightforward. Once we made sure that we, of course, it's always important that I'm talking to the 3D artist at the time, because of course aesthetically it might be nicer to have it thinner, smaller, whatever it may be, but I'm always considering it from an engineering point of view, production point of view. How do we do it where we blend that production necessity with aesthetics? So, we got that just about right with this.
All right, cool. All right, next question from Thomas Lane. As this is the second life-size mask that F4F has made, first one being Majora's Mask, did you find Aku Aku to be easier or harder to make?
Why don't we actually bring in that Majora's Mask for
all
size comparison, okay? So
This is going to be interesting.
I actually did this with bearing that in mind.
Oops.
So I'm going to move this across. You got the chocks.
Alright. Here, face is forward first.
Yeah.
Oops. That didn't go so well.
There you go. Slot that right back in. You've got the space on that. Watch out for the feathers.
Alright. Ooh.
Okay, let me bring it a bit more across.
Yeah.
Yeah, come across. There you go.
Guys, just letting you guys know this is slightly further back, so it might look a bit smaller, but...
I'll move this back a bit.
You sure?
Yeah, hold on. Just bring it about there. There you go. Perfect.
Right, cool. I'll hold this side just in case.
Right. So, here we are, guys. What I wanted to do is wanted to take that into account that we had the Majora's Mask, and we would believe that there will be some collectors that would buy both the Aku Aku and the Majora's Mask, despite there being completely different licenses. And I think whenever you do any of these types of prop replicas in the life-size ones, is that we consider this always, that what we've released, they're within the same sort of scale and size. So it was very, very clear to me at the very, very beginning that I wanted to have them be relatively similar in terms of overall presence and size. And you could put them next to each other and they would look like they were from the same game, from the same genre, from whatever it is. And hopefully you agree with me, Chocks. Don't they look amazing next to each other?
Both very colourful and detailed.
Beautiful. Absolutely. You've got the textures on the Majora's Mask, you've got the textures on the Aku Aku Mask, and you can really see the size of this, the height of the horns on the Majora's Mask, the height of the leaves of the Aku Aku Mask, the whole thing. Even the size of the base chocks and the size of the width of the base over here.
It's very similar.
And the height over here and the height over here. Every single aspect was taken that into account when designing the base, when designing the height to be very, very similar to Majora's Mask to get them going in hand, side by side. Is it worth us risking to see if this can actually turn it?
No problem.
Look at that. Why don't we give it a one-turn, Chucks? I can hear it
Yeah.
kind of like the lazy Susan is like straining its motor as hard as it can. But let's give it a one time before we take off the Majora's Mask. But yeah, guys, as we talked about, how does it look from the side? Well, you can really get a better idea when you can see just how they go really, really well together. Fortunately, it's slightly cut out here and slightly cut out there, but you guys can get a better idea that they do look great. Side by side.
The depth is very similar as well.
Yeah, that was all taken into account.
Yeah.
This, the front, all that was taken into account just as much as the width, the height, all of that was taken into account that they look great next to each other. And of course, I'd love to get my hands on working on an Uka Uka mask in the future, maybe another Aku Aku mask in the future from the Insane trilogy, for example, and they will all look like this, i.e. the same sort of size, scale, and looking amazing next to each other. It's good, yeah, Chucks?
Yeah.
And also you can talk about the texture details for both of them also being there as well. So yeah, definitely this is, the Majora's Mask having already been made was the inspiration behind the making of this. So when James Bennington asked, what was the hardest bit about balancing it and being so high above it? Of course, when Thomas Lane was talking about but James's question about that earlier, I can really talk a bit more about that. Once we knew we had the fact that it was coming out of the mask, out of the crate, and I knew that we were going to try and match it to look absolutely spot on next to Majora's Mask and like all the ranges of of any kind of mask that we make. Once we knew that, the whole aesthetics, we were confined. We were, shall I say, what's the word? We were sort of not forced is the word, but we were constrained to do it in this scale, so to do it in this size and detail-wise. And I say constrained is probably kind of a negative thing, but actually it was quite focusing. It allowed us, because we knew we had to make it very similar to the Majora's Mask in terms of size, distance, negative space, all that sort of stuff. That meant the composition for Aku Aku Mask was that much easier because I felt like I'd already done it for the Majora's Mask. So, that gives you a better indication to Thomas and to James about making that. Okay? All right. Should we take it down? There you go. Yeah. Try to keep the horns on this time. Very heavy. They both are. Yeah.
Right.
This is like, so much easier to turn it now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right, next question from Alicia Bucci again. Is this the fastest statue development you had? I remember you posted a 2D concept in May and it's up for pre-order in late November.
You know what, I actually think that Crash was actually one of the fastest things because we had time constraints. The time constraint was when the game came out.
The PVC.
Yeah, the PVC, yes. This was a really, especially because it was made in PVC as well, that involved additional time and making, because the reality is, Chocks, when we put this up for pre-order, it was already at very far down the development stage. Far further down the development stage than this, because this is the factory counter sample. It's a prototype that the factory made because they based it off of our original counter sample, right?
Right.
Whereas when we put Crash up for pre-order, Chocks, that was already in the material of PVC, and that basically involves way further down the line than for this. So this was much quicker in terms of go. As soon as we got the license, we just concentrated on this super hard on that and worked really closely with Activision to get this done as quick as we could. So in terms of
it's a different manufacturing process.
But of course this had a game coming out, and we had to pay close attention to that. Whereas the Aku Aku Mask, there is no time constraint, there is no time thing that needs to be done right now. The only reason why we're saying we want this to come a little bit earlier than normal, perhaps, is because Crash Bandicoot, the resin statue, is already very deep in development as well. And well, the reality is either or could have gone up right now. So the quicker we get one up, we don't want to go here's the Aku Aku and the next month here's the Crash, because we're going to assume that Crash fans are going to potentially want to buy both. And we know they aren't these products are luxury items, so it made sense to not try and ask the collectors to try and buy both so similar. It's such a short period of time.
Yeah.
So the quicker we get this up, the quicker we can. The quicker the longer the distance will be, time frame between the Aku Aku and the Crash resin when the time comes. Okay.
Yep. Right, next question from Jeremy Beerson. Will Aku Aku be packaged in the traditional fashion, or will we have to spin attack him out?
I would love for you to post your unboxing video, Jeremy, when you get the Aku Aku mask. Let us know how did it work for you. Let me know if your spin attack worked. The answer is I'm not really sure, but test it and let us know.
Maybe we could do that during drop tests.
I like it.
Spin attack that drop test.
Yeah.
Right, next question from Chris Affey. What complication, if any, did you encounter when constructing the chosen design?
Yeah, as I said, this really was a pretty straightforward one. Because we had the focus to match that Majora's Mask, to make sure that they looked awesome together, and also the composition of it was all similar. Because we could have easily made the Aku Aku Mask much higher, lower, side, whatever it was. Even the slight tilt of the Majora's Mask is replicated here, that you can see from here, that very slight to perfect timing. It's very slightly tilted. And the reason why Chocks is slightly tilted up, because it's quite big. You expect most people to be putting it on a middle shelf, like sort of maybe tabletop, wherever it may be. So if you're if it's slightly lower, when you look at it, it's slightly looking upwards, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, just in answer to Chris's question, the only difficulty was coming up with the design and what it took to get there, and going through the processes of narrowing it down, getting written, not going with the club chosen design and moving forwards from that.
Right. Okay. Another question from Matthew. First question actually. Matthew McLaurie. How were you able to get the sneak peek statue of Aku Aku ready in time for NYCC 2017, and what changes did you make to the statue since its debut?
Great question. So we had the Aku Aku mask ready just about. Getting ready for New York Comic Con was like, oh, go, when things were not quite ready. but we asked the permission from Activision to say, is it okay that we put this up and then put a message next to it to say that it is subject to final approval, etc., etc. And they were very gracious to allow us to do that, so we're very grateful for that. And but certainly there have been some changes that have been made since we actually debuted the piece at the show. So why don't we talk a little bit about that, Charles? Well, the first one is this. Let's start from the top upwards. The first thing is that if you look at the original designs of the feathers, the way they were painted in the New York Comic Con version, it was very, very different. The colors themselves were in different order, and they were different colors completely. Also, the styling of the feathers, so I don't mean the colors of the feathers, the way that it was painted was very much like it was one solid color with one solid color of with the stripes. That was how the New York Comic Con version was painted. Now the difference with this one, of course, is if you look down the stalk of the feather, it has the kind of green that matches the green stripes over here, the kind of lighter yellows that matches the yellows over here, the orange that goes through this that matches the orange, and the sort of reddy purple that goes through the purple and matches. All of a sudden you have a little bit more detail with regards to the actual feathers themselves. So not only are the colours different, but the detailing to the feathers have been improved. Subtle colour changes throughout the stalks, subtle changes with the way that we have some of the... Can you see that the stalk colour chocks, if you go down it and you look through it, you can actually see how it kind of runs outwards. Yeah. So you have that green and then lines coming out from here and going along the feather lines. You see that, Chocks?
Yeah, definitely. They kind of fan outwards.
Exactly.
Fan outwards.
Yeah.
For example,
that's absolutely
this red one, you can see them coming down along these veins.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So the other change, of course, was if you look at the original Aku Aku mask at the New York Comic Con, the colour of the mask and the colour of the crate was exactly the same colour brown, which was a problem as well. So we actually changed that, so we made it so this had a bit more orange to it to give it a bit of offset colour from the actual mask itself. And last but not least, we have a few of these rivets here, which we just, you can sort of see here. Yeah. Before they were just painted very, very dark brown. Here we added a little bit more metallic sheen to it. Can you see the metallic sheen on that, Chocks?
Yeah.
So those were the main changes that we made from New York Comic Con to the prototype that you see here. It's kind of some much to say. Yeah. What you see is what you get.
Yep. All right. Next question. Austin Paul, will the mask be wall mountable?
So, when we made the Majora's Mask, a lot of people also asked that question.
Yep, they did.
The reality is this, Chocks. If we wanted to make it wall mountable, it would mean, first of all, we're not... There are two aspects to this. The first one is there would be nothing worse than the knowledge that something that was incorrectly installed on the wall fell down and took out somebody else's collection. Maybe they mounted it above the TV, mounted it above their collection, it drops down, smashes, and B's the culprit. Now, of course, the question is going to be like, what happened? Was it because the resin broke? Was it because it incorrectly mounted it? And all these sort of things, I'm thinking, oh, no, I really don't want to sort of have to deal with that. That's the first reason. So the answer is no, it's not. And that's one of the reasons why. It's not the only reason why it's really not worth it. The second reason is the base itself is so instrumental in telling the story, Chalks, of how it comes out. I think it would be a crying shame for you guys to ignore the base and simply stick it on the wall. Now, I appreciate collector spaces are tight. Some collectors collect a lot of different lines, whatever it may be, and space may be a premium. Space may be the reason why they can't, that they may want to mount the Aku Aku mask on the wall because the space on the shelves is at a premium. Well, there's a very easy solution to that, and that, of course, is to get rid of all of your non-F4Fs. Not only does that help you buy more F4Fs, but it also gives more space. But jokes aside, the reality is it would be a shame to lose the base. And the second thing is, this is very, very thin. In order to create more wall mountable sort of inserts and places to do that, it's really, really, really tough to do it with the thickness of this. Now, let's be clear, this thing is not light. And you really need to have very, very serious things in there. And last but not least, Chocks, as you mentioned earlier on, what did you notice about the back?
It's curved inwards.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's not completely flat. And when it's not completely flat, it starts making it just that much more difficult to make sure that they're all perfectly aligned and all that sort of stuff. So the answer is, guys, Austin, I should say, it is not wall mountable, and I'm sorry if that's what was a feature that you wanted, but we just thought when we compared all the sort of breakage risks that are possible, the fact that you then don't get to enjoy it the way that we intended in terms of without the base, it's, you know, basically for us to, we just basically thought it wasn't worth pursuing that, especially with the kind of physical changes. I think we probably have to make it thicker as well. And this really wasn't something that we wanted to do. Make it thicker, make it flatter, all that sort of stuff. So the answer is no, it is not wall mountable.
Right, okay, last but not least, Abraham Sanchez. How does Aku's size compare to the size of Resin Crash's face?
Well, this, let's be clear, is life size. As life size as that can be. When I say it's life size, you know, we're talking about, you know...
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. Hi! Right, that's basically what we're talking about life size. Yes, it's life size to me. Now, of course, how big is a Bandicoot? Well, Chocks, should we go to Australia and find out?
Well, we've got a small one around here.
Well, indeed, we have the small one around
We
here.
have the small one, too.
So in terms of, unless we were making a life-size Crash Bandicoot,
Okay.
then the Crash Bandicoot, then of course, it would make it obviously, the Crash Bandicoot that we're making is not life-size, so therefore it is not any relationship to the actual size of the Aku mask. The reality is it is, you know, not life-size. But don't get me wrong, that the life-size...
How does it compare to the Resin Crash?
Look, no, it's talking about his face.
His face?
He's talking about his face, Crash Bandicoot's face.
Yeah.
So the answer is, of course, Crash Bandicoot's face is probably about this size. His snout is about this long. So, you know, it wouldn't really make too much sense. And also, of course, what you don't see, of course, is because he's got such a long snout, how do you actually get that on his face?
I don't know.
Or has he got like a magnet for the nose?
Takes one off.
So like his face is completely flat.
Takes that off and puts the mask on.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it should be technically like that. Because his nose is coming out like this, right? So he's like, kind of like...
It's like bendy nose, he's got a really bendy nose.
Well, it could be that reason, it could be that as well. So the answer really is, I don't know, in terms of how you could actually physically get that to connect. But so the reality is, the Crash resin is significant in size, but of course it's not life size. Once we do a making of documentary for Crash, of course have Baby Crash, the PVC, we'll have Daddy Crash, the OG resin, and of course we'll have the life size Aku mask. So you can see how it's possible to have a very, very great Crash Bandicoot collection with just F4F stuff. And we look forward to expanding people's collections just based on that. Of course, over the years, as we do more and more product, we'll add to that as well.
Yeah. Right, that's all the questions.
All right, nice. Chocks, I think it's time to do the shout-outs.
Oh, you want to do it now, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, then. Do that now, then.
How does that work?
Right, guys, so as I was saying, these questions can be found in the documentary Q&A, well, not Q&A, the documentary thread in the Collectors Club. And any moment in that thread, I will post a comment saying, hey, first 10 people to reply to that comment will get a shout out from Alex. So that is random. So just keep a lookout, really.
Let's kick that off with a shout out to Wayne Grudiger. Boom, shout out to you. You also got a question answered, congrats. Thomas Lane, 2 for 2, shout out to you. Jonathan Dixon, what is going on? Group admin, how's it going? We have Jamie Bailey, he says, Ooga booga. We have Jean-Maxime Marlowe, how's it going? Shout out to you. Brendan Rostello, bada bing bada boom, how is Ryan? And we have John Pina, Shout out to you, Jordan, Rudy, how's it going? Alessio Bucci, shout out, and last but not least, Amanda Kirby, bada bing, bada boom, done.
Well done.
Thank you.
Got all the names correct.
All the names correct. It's time, Chocks,
Yep.
to discuss the exclusive edition.
Exclusive.
What you see right here, guys, is the regular version. So it comes with this, the whole thing, bada bing, bada boom, boom. This is the regular version. No ifs or buts. This is what it looks like.
Right.
We have an exclusive feature. If you would notice, basically, as this was going around, you would have noticed that there was this black mark here and a sort of couple of things over here. Now, those that aren't new to us,
That's the first thing. That's the first thing they'll look for.
they'll notice, and that's
Yes.
because they'll know there's some sort of electronics inside. And what we can see is, of course, is a power button, and over here we have a LED for a micro USB charging station indicator, because basically there are rechargeable batteries in here, Chocks. And what does it do? What does the rechargeable batteries do? Well, in 3, 2, 1. Check it out. So we have the lights, and of course it has a fantastic view when you have it at the night. And of course, right now, I can't tell you how many lights we have in the studio, Chocks.
5.
Quite a
6,
few.
No, 7.
So, of course, it's very hard to see the lights when it's on, but you can definitely see that they've come on. And, the studio lighting is really kind of making it a bit too bright. There are definitely some, we're going to take some shots right now, overlay some night shots, you can get a better idea of what that looks like. What I wanted to say, Chocks, one of the kind of difficulties, of course, was that there was some, I believe there's some sort of resin streaks within inside the actual masks.
Yeah.
The actual production ones, we're going to make sure that they're not there. You can only kind of see when you turn it on. Now, that is going to be sorted out for that.
Yeah.
But this one was pretty straightforward, Chocks. We also showed it at New York Comic Con. No secrets there. Turn on the lights, bada bing, bada boom. Eyes light up. It gives it just that little bit extra chemistry, a little bit extra uniqueness, a little bit more authenticity to the game itself.
Gives it a bit of life as well.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and just gives it that little extra. You can really sort of see the spotlight of the eyes. It almost looks like they're. You can see the sort of 2 dots of them. You can sort of see how the 2 dots are there. Looks really great. Looks really, really great. I love how it's sort of come out. Definitely. What do you think, Chocks?
Oh, it's good. I mean, you can use it as a night light.
Can you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you got to find the switch on the back of the statue.
I'm not quite convinced you might be reading too much by, how should I say, Aku eye light. But hey, if it does, let us know in the comments if you bought one and you can read by that. I'll be interested to see how that says. Well, Chocks, make sure we come back and we check how this goes in Q3 2018 after it's been released. We can see what people say with regards to that. But yeah, guys, it sort of draws your attention to it, Chocks, as it comes around. What do you think? Yeah, you can sort of see the way you still got
it has a kind of it's not a very harsh glow. It's kind of a soft glow and with the eyes, kind of a frosty, because it has kind of a frosty surface.
He does, yeah, definitely. There's definitely a slight opaqueness to that, so it's kind of like a frostedness, as you said, and that really sort of brings it to us for that, so you can really sort of get a better idea of that. Check it out, guys. So the exclusive version comes with those lights, and it is something that we're really excited to be able to show that. Now, Chocks, is it time to do the dimensions? You thought that you're definitely sure that this is something that you want in your something that you want to have in your collection, something that you think that it's got a right place for your collection. Maybe you want to know exactly where you should put it, what's the size, what's the weight, so you can just find that perfect spot in your collection.
Honestly, it might look big on the screen, but you look at the footprint, it's actually quite small. It's a nice square shape, and the only thing you have to consider is really height-wise. So I think that should be straightforward, really. I mean, first things first, I want to tell the guys how many pieces this comes in first. Right, so when we ship this out, my assumption is that these are definitely removable. So
Yeah.
we're not going to ship this because obviously we're concerned with packaging and breakages, etc. So these 4 feathers are going to be separate pieces, so you can actually put them in yourself. And then I believe the mask and the base.
So, you know what? That is actually something that I still need to discuss with the engineering team. There are definitely some things that I want to be clear on.
Yeah.
I think some of these pieces are going to be removable or
Right.
should be removable because I'm not 100% convinced that it won't. And I'm still considering whether or not we're going to make the mask separate or not. I need to have a conversation. So in terms of, are we at that stage yet in terms of final?
But the feathers are definitely individual
That's
pieces.
no-brainer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Whether or not we also have the leaf on the chin, the goatee removed,
yeah.
that is...
That could be done easily, magnetized.
Right. You know, that is definitely something that we will consider removing it or not. So I don't believe there's actually the final one with regards to the engineering chocks.
Right.
The leaves, 100%.
100%.
So guys, you know, keep logged, keep yourselves sort of glued on our website. We have a blog. We'll update that in terms of the final breakdown of how we're going to do it. I'm going to be making sure, if you haven't seen me do it, I do drop tests, throw it around as if I'm the world's worst courier and try to break it inside its packaging. And I'm going to do it just the same thing with that Aqua mask, and I want to make sure that the separations of all of that make sense and can pass those tests that I do. So in terms of the definitive guide right now, sorry we don't have it for you right now. So we'll come back and let you guys know how we ultimately do that.
All right, okay.
So
Out of the way, now it's measurements.
let's do the measurements.
The Coke can test.
All right. It's quite tall, isn't it?
Yes, the silver can test.
1. 2.
You'll have to stand up.
I am going to have to. 3. 4.
Ooh, make sure I've got enough cans.
5.
Ooh. We haven't had a 6th one for a while, have we?
I haven't had a 6th one, but that is definitely 6.
Yeah, just under 6.
Just under 6. I don't trust myself, so I'm going to bring that all down. Boom! Alright, now guys, just to let you know, these are 330 ml cans. Our American family across the pond is using 350 or 355 ml cans, so just bear that in mind. There are some slight differences between the ones that we have here in Hong Kong versus the ones that you have in the US. I'm not quite sure about Europe. I think they're also 330 in Europe as well. Yeah. Cool. So it's, as you said, coming up to 6 cans in height.
All right, my turn now. Right, let's start with the height. Right now, looking at this, the yellow feather seems to be the highest point. So you can see from the camera as well.
Yeah.
So took it from the bottom of the base to the top of that yellow feather.
Yeah.
I've got that at 25.5 inches.
25.5.
Yep. So that's 65 centimeters. 65 centimeters. Yep.
That's some height.
And then for the width, which is going to be
this way over here.
No, it's not the bottom. It's there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, from the edge of that blue feather.
Yeah, you're right.
To pretty much this purple one already.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Sorry, totally.
got that there to there, and I've got that at 17 inches wide, which is 43 centimeters.
There you go.
Yeah. In depth, which is like from here to here, and basically it's perfectly within this kind of square-shaped base because the mask doesn't actually go over it. So got this right here let's do this from the front. So from here to here, I've got that at 11 inches in depth. So that's 28 centimeters. So depth-wise, it's like here, like so.
Great.
From the front to the back.
How many inches?
11 inches.
11 inches, 28 cm.
28
there you go.
Right.
So, you know, the only thing you consider is the height,
Yep.
the width, the footprint is actually quite small if you consider it overall.
Right.
And hopefully, as we talked a bit about earlier, Chocks, each area has to justify its space in terms of the size, in terms of all of that. So, you know, making use of that. Cool. So, guys,
One more thing. That's not it yet.
Is it not?
I've got the weight.
Of course.
Yes, how heavy it is.
Yeah, of course.
This is very heavy. I've got this at 7.72 kgs.
So that's why, you know, never skip gym day. Do you even lift, bro? Because it was quite heavy lifting that up, moving it around.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys.
7.72. 7.72.
How many pounds was that? Times that by 2.25. Boom, American weight.
I thought you were going to tell the actual weight as well.
So, this is what you get.
All right.
But that's not it, Chocks.
No?
We have the regular. We have the exclusive.
Hold on. We have the regular. All right?
Yeah.
No lights.
Yeah.
All nice and pretty without the lights. We have
The
the
exclusive.
exclusive with the lights.
One more thing.
One more thing.
We're going to introduce a super variant that is going to only be available for just 3 days. I mean, technically, if you include the period, a week.
My calculator tells me 8 days exactly.
It's Friday to Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess so. Friday evening, super late. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Total of 8 days.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? How does that work? Well, what is it exactly? Well, here we go, Choc. Why don't we move this
Out the way.
to the side?
right.
Yeah, let's move it to the side and keep that all the way over there.
Like so.
Yeah.
Go on. I'll hold this side down.
My turn, yeah?
Alright. Get ready, guys.
Ooh. This one's a big one. Well, it's the same one, so. Here we go, guys.
Do you even lift?
Oh, Jesus.
Ooh.
Oh, Jesus. Watch out for them.
Yeah. Alright. Maybe I tilt that in a bit.
Oh,
I tilt my side in.
Jesus. Boom! There you go, yeah, turn that in.
Sweet.
Sweet. Yeah, turn it like that.
Yeah.
That tilted nicely.
Don't
Yeah?
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Woo! Check it out, guys. The golden variant.
Gold.
Now, Chocks, what's the difference between the two? Well, we can see that
Real gold.
So if we compare the two, you can of course see that the actual colours of itself, it has, if you turn it around,
Alright.
you kind of have that kind of that sort of metallic, kind of subtle metallic looks to that.
You see the sheen.
You can see the sheen much more. And of course, don't forget that we're in really bright lights, so it's probably actually making this glow up a little bit more than it would normally. So the difference doesn't look quite as much, but you can definitely sort of see it. And you can see that you have the kind of orangey nose, metallic orangey nose, a kind of brownish kind of gold for the teeth, a kind of similar kind of metallic-y red, and the
Bling, bling.
eyebrows. I didn't want to say it, but you said it. So this is
I haven't heard that word in a long time.
This is the bling bling version, I should say, and of course, that is why you can see the same kind of feeling. We talked about the bling bling feathers, the metallic feathers,
Yeah.
the way that it has the lines go through them as well, just very, very similar to the other one as well, and really brings that kind of metallic effect. Now, why is there this
Same
golden
with-
mask?
same
Oh
with
yeah,
the
sorry,
goatee
of
as well,
course,
yeah,
with the goatee,
goatee as well.
So what is this all about, Chocks? Why is there a golden mask? What is that all about, Chocks?
Well, if you play the game, the first time you meet Aku
Yeah.
destroying a crate, that's the first time you see him.
Yep, and what does he look like?
You know, you pick him, looks like this one here.
Oh, there you
He's
go.
like floating right next to you
Yep,
as you play through the game.
there you go.
Right, so let's say I'm going halfway through the level, I hit another Aku looking crate.
Yeah.
Right? Boom, I pick that up and he turns gold. Yeah,
This gold.
that gold.
There you go, absolutely.
We should make a third one.
Because it sticks to his face, doesn't it?
It sticks to his face and he's like blinking. Really blinking. You and like the mask himself and Crash
Yeah.
himself is like
We'll start with stage 1 and 2 for now.
stage
okay?
1 and 2, yeah.
So, guys, that is absolutely the super limited variant. This one is only going to be available for 1 week only, or 8 days, as we said.
Yeah.
And then we take all orders based on that for exactly 8 days. And all orders for this for basically totally is about.
Well, the usual standard.
Yeah, so basically
The
2
two-
weeks plus a last chance weekend,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So just to clarify that, this is going to be the golden version, which you can actually purchase on its own, or if you want both, if you want to collect both Aqua masks, we have a combo pack.
We'll have a combo pack, and more information will be on the website, so do please check that out. Of course, last but not least, this, of course, just like the other one over there, lights up, of course.
And look you can see the subtle difference. Look at the eyes, because obviously it is different.
It's got that
color.
sheen to it, yeah.
The base is different color. The base of the mask, is like a more, I wouldn't say rust. It's kind of like more goldy orange color.
Yeah.
And the eyes themselves, different color shade of orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. With regards to that.
If you're feeling invincible, get this version.
Absolutely, Chocks.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to add, Chocks?
I think that's it. Right.
Yeah, I believe so.
Guys, so please, if you enjoy more of these documentary videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to if you want your questions answered in the next documentary, make sure you look out for the documentary post in the Collectors Club as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Chuckles.
F4F is love.
F4F is life.
That's another one wrapped up, Chocks.
All right.
Peace.
Laters.